Hey guys, welcome back. You know, there's been a lot of reviews and examinations of lots of different products over many years and frankly generations of modeling. And one of the things I've always found interesting is that rarely do you see follow-up reviews. So that's exactly what we're going to do today. I'm going to take a look at FrSky, what it's done for me, and how it's changed my modeling. So looking back at a couple of the videos that I've put out for you guys, I did one on the Horus X10S, pretty comprehensive review, went over some of its capabilities and my impressions on it. I've had that transmitter for about a year now, and so I'll go over some of those things, but I'm also going to go over a speed controller that I got that's FrSky branded based on BL-Heli-32. And you can obviously get those videos in the link in the description below, but you know, it's important for you to have some context. So if you haven't watched those videos and you're here at the channel for the first time, I encourage you to go back and take a look at those so that you sort of understand where I'm coming from on some of these talking points. I'm first going to go over the speed controller. The FrSky speed controller that came out about a year and a half ago. It's based on the BL-Heli-32 architecture. I really love that speed controller. And I was flying it with a motor on an airplane, playing around with iMac, and I crashed the plane. I mean, I nosed it straight into the ground, and it had fire, lost my batteries, burnt up the whole front of the airplane's toast. But I will say that despite the fire and the crash, held up just fine. I've tested it pretty comprehensively. Haven't flown with it yet, but that's not because I don't want to. It's because I haven't had an opportunity to put it in another airplane. But I love it. I was able to use it a lot on an aerobatic airplane. And if you recall, I talked a lot about the braking capabilities of this. And again, this is mostly in regard to like multi-copter function, where you want to control the amount of spin at every position of the throttle. Now, again, this is called damped light mode. And I was using this in conjunction with the zero throttle braking to help control my downlines. And this absolutely works. I was able to much better control my downlines and make things more smooth and predictable as I'm learning the basic iMac routine. And I will say that I ended up with a damp mode of 20%, or a braking mode of 20%. So other than that, most of the work was taken care of for me through the ESC. Now, that ESC, I put it through quite the ringer. I had it on approximately a 60 size motor, okay? But I was drawing at peak around 110 amps. The speed controller states that it's 80 amp ESC with a maximum burst up to 100 amps. I was at nearly 110 amps, more frequently 108, 109 amps. Had no issues. The one issue that I did have at first when I installed in the airplane was a little bit of heat. It was getting up to around 85 degrees, but once I installed it with a bit more efficient air cooling, temperature stayed around 70 degrees the whole time. And these are degrees centigrade. Sorry, centigrade. But yeah, between that and the regenerative braking, it ended up being a perfect combination on this aerobatic ship. And I just enjoyed having so much fun with it and put pack after pack after pack in it, doing so much learning at the same time. It was super, super fun. Now, I want to go a little bit further in that the last time I talked about this ESC, there was speculation about new ESCs coming out. And sure enough, FrSky did come out with a new version called the Neuron series. They have 40, 60, and 80 amp speed controllers, separated by about $5 in margin in price, going from $50 to $60. But it's like an updated version. What's really cool about them, though, is that you can change the voltage of the BEC. The first generation, you were stuck at 5 volts, and that's it. You know, some of the larger ships that I run, the servos prefer around 6 volts for, you know, maximum torque and speed. And this was something that, again, that I talked about previously, no longer an issue. I've flown so far twice with this Neuron ESC that I picked up. Again, it's the 80 amp, and I put it in my Dauntless, and I combined it with a new power system from Motion RC. It's the same power system they have in their Corsair. 17-inch, 17 by 12 prop, 3-blade. It's a 4-something kV motor, 500-something kV motor. Can't remember exactly, but perfect setup, and the noise is like non-existent, and it works really, really well. And this is like a 12-pound giant scale airplane. So one thing that I did notice with the Neuron that's different from the previous generation is that when you first plug in the ESC, it does heat up a bit more than you would possibly expect. Don't know why, but as soon as you start flying and it gets some airflow, it cools right down very quickly. And this has been observed not just by me, but a lot of other people. I followed a thread on RC groups, and there have been numerous people that have talked about it there as well. So something to take note, not a huge concern about, but it is something to note. One of the things that I want to also note about this is I haven't been able, obviously with only 2 flights on it, I haven't been able to fully ring it through. I've only put, so this power system that I put in, it was only drawing 55 amps, and that's on an 80 amp speed controller. So the temperatures were not getting very high. I think I hit a maximum of 45 degrees in flight, and so it's, again, at 45 degrees centigrade, so it's not getting terribly, terribly hot. I do have one major gripe. Okay, it seems silly, but hear me out. Whenever you buy any other speed controller on the market, any speed controller, I don't care if it's an Opto, a Castle, a YEP, it comes with a servo lead. It comes with a servo lead. These don't. They don't come with a servo lead. It seems just bonkers to me that it won't come with a servo lead. So you have to end up having a female to female servo lead, or no, is it male, female, whatever. You have to have a servo lead that goes into the speed controller and then plugs into your receiver. It doesn't come with one, and that seems silly to me. And they included one in the first generation of the speed controllers that they had. In fact, they included 2. One for the throttle channel and one for the telemetry. I don't understand why they don't include this. Come on, FrSky. They're just a couple of wires and a couple pieces of plastic. It's simple enough to include, and there's certainly room inside your packaging for it. One note more on the telemetry for this. There have been a number of discussions around this, again, on the threads, and one thing you need to know is that for telemetry, you don't need to connect the positive and negative wires of the telemetry port. Okay, so you just have to have the one signal that goes to your smart port. Okay, it's not entirely clear in the directions. It is there, but it's not entirely clear. We're gonna just take one of those servo connectors that you plug in normally, but remove the positive and negative and only use the signal. There have been instances where, because of the new architecture with the current sensing or something like that, it ends up with a positive feedback loop, and this messes up and smokes your ESC, and it's unusable, so don't do it. So the advantages of this speed controller over the previous generation. Number one, again, is the ability to change your BEC voltage. You can change it in increments, and there's actually a Lua script that you can put on your transmitter And this includes for FrOS as well as for OpenTX. And you can change it to multiple different voltages. I think it goes up as high as 7.5. I can't recall, but you can change it and it works. But again, because you're dealing with BL Heli 32 and OpenTX and the telemetry protocol and whatnot, just make sure all your software is up to date. You'll save yourself a bunch of headaches. You'll save headaches for other people out on forums when you ask for help. Just make sure that your software on your transmitter, your firmware on the ESC, just make sure everything is up to date, as current as possible, and you shouldn't have any problems. I ended up having the version that was published on the FrSky website, but it was for the version of OpenTX that is to come, which seems kind of silly, but I guess they're trying to be preventative there. So because I don't have the OpenTX version 2.3, it's not working, and I had to go to a different version, but they're out there, and I'll be putting a link in the description for that just so that you guys are right on par. Other advantages is that you're really getting a good deal. I mean, it's a steal of a deal for $60 for all of the features that you get with all the telemetry and efficiency, and it's just a great package. It's a bargain as far as I'm concerned. Now moving on to the Horus. So the Horus, you see me making little faces. The Horus has been a growing experience. I love my Horus. Don't get me wrong here. I ended up getting a hard case for it. That was a gift from my wife for Christmas, and I cannot recommend it enough. The advantages of the hard case over the soft case are just phenomenal. There's a little storage area to keep things. I've got my AMA card, my FAA card. I've got just a whole bunch of stuff in there tucked away on the side, including an external module. Yeah, it's worth it. They also now have a balance bar. It's $10, which seems a little bit excessive, but whatever. Pick it up at a loft, link in the description. The feel, I'm still, every time I fly, I just still feel so connected with the airplanes. And, I haven't had any issues except for one in terms of signal issue. I'm using the internal antennas all the time because it's full diversity. It's there, it's available. There were a number of people at Flight Fest this year that had issues. They were on FrSky. We'd never encountered that before. Had a slight issue with my P-47 when I was flying it, and it was just intermittent. But the great advantage of the FrSky protocol is that if it goes out, it tries to recover as quickly as possible, and it did. It was just instantaneous recovery as soon as it locked out. What was weird is I didn't get any alarms as the signal got weak. So again, we're convinced that me and a lot of my friends and other people I've talked to, we think there was just interference. It wasn't weak signal, it was just interference. Another talking point is the signal of FrSky in lots of diverse circumstances. So as far as I've been able to tell, I haven't seen anyone else fly an airplane that is completely covered in aluminum. The internet is a very big place, but I have had no issues flying the P-47. Even after Flight Fest and rebuilding one wing and going to another event, had 2 great flights, logged the telemetry just fine there, had no issues. I've had my radian up as high as 900 feet, and the signal is just as good as the aluminum skin P-47 is, straight down far into the runway. So there are no issues with the FrSky protocol. I don't know why they're moving to the Access. We're not going there in this video. It's not what it's for. So yeah. If you guys are thinking that I'm going to go into the whole Access versus the old protocol, this is not that video, so look elsewhere. We're just here to have a good time and talk about the use of the FrSky technologies. So one of the big downsides that I've come across quite unexpectedly is actually the screen, of all things to complain about. So the screen is brilliant. It's beautiful, it's clear, and the disadvantage is if you fly at night, you're kind of at a loss. So the screen does not dim very dim when it's dark outside and you're flying night flyers. So when I'm flying, I fly with glasses. I have prescription sunglasses too. So when I'm flying at night and I'm coming into land, I end up getting a glare off of my glasses from the radio as I'm coming into land. It's not a good situation. On top of that, when you're flying at night and you have a giant light source, you get bugs. Lots and lots of bugs. Again, something you may not think about. My solution, though, was just to make a clear pad, or not a clear pad, a black pad out of Gorilla Tape. Just Gorilla Tape top and bottom, and then I cut it out the exact dimensions. And because of the beveling where the screen is, it just sits right in there, and I don't have any problems with that anymore. Ergonomics. All right, so this is the one thing that I've had to complain about, and it's not FrSky's fault. It's my genetics. So I have large palms and fairly short, stubby fingers, and as such, it's pretty uncomfortable for me to fly on any radio as a pincher pilot. In combination with that, I have tendons that are just stuck together. So when I move my middle finger, my ring finger it goes with it. So if I were to use sliders or other switches with these fingers, if I were a pincher pilot, my muscles just don't do the things that other people can do. So I'm a thumb pilot only for those reasons. And as such, the geometry of the gimbals is just uncomfortable. When I'm moving the right stick to forward to apply forward pressure, so down elevator, and left aileron, I end up having to rotate my hand just a little bit at the wrist. And that really shouldn't be, because then you end up moving position of other fingers that are on other switches that control other things. And yeah, you should have as little movement in the wrist as possible and just have it be at a resting position. So I ended up having the same issue with the Tyrannus when I first got it. And what seemed to solve it was when I picked apart the JR gimbals out of a 1998 JR X388S. The gimbals fit just fine, but the advantage was that they sat further down inside the transmitter, so that pivot point is further away and you end up not having to reach as far. You have the same movement, but it's that slight change in geometry that makes it much more comfortable to do. So as a solution to that, I stumbled across a fellow who took a piece of ABS pipe and he put it on the lathe, and I was just like, duh, I can 3D print. So I now have a new 3D printable on my Thingiverse page that, again, I'll put a link to. This adds 6 millimeters of depth overall to the radio. Really can't add any more than that due to the position of the slider potentiometers inside the radio. It's a bit of a snug fit, but there's a link in my Thingiverse page to the post that I made on RC groups about how to install these. You do need longer screws, so pick up some longer screws at your hardware store. Took me about 20 minutes to install these. Each one of these to print took about 20 minutes to print, so 40 minutes total. Easy. And it has completely changed my comfort level in flying. So I can't recommend it enough if you're a thumb pilot. If you're a pincher, you might find it advantageous. I don't know. I can't really tell you because I don't pinch fly. But it has made a world of difference for me. So the last thing I want to talk about is something that is not necessarily Horus specific, however it can be. I've talked to a number of pilots who fly FrSky radios, and whenever you bring up the subject of Lua scripts, people kind of cringe. They don't really know what it is. They don't know how to understand it. They're like, oh, it's something about computer programming or coding or something. As I've looked into it, it's not. Okay, just out in the open, it's not. It's basically you've got this transmitter that has a computer on the inside, and a Lua script is an app. That's all it is. It's a program that runs on your transmitter. So previously when I was talking about the Neuron ESC, I mentioned a Lua script. So there's an app that I can download, put on my radio and run, and I'll be able to wirelessly change the voltage of my BEC. Super nice, super convenient, easy peasy lemon squeezy. It's not wizardry or anything. You don't have to be a code monkey to understand it. All you have to do is look what's out there already, download it, and put it on the SD card in the scripts folder on your SD card. So pop out your SD card, put it in your computer with an adapter if you need one, and download your Lua script. It'll be .lua. You can actually open these programs using Notepad or a basic text editor. And all you have to do is dump that in your scripts folder, and then you can run it through the SD card browser on your transmitter. It's really that easy. I'll do a demonstration for you guys, so just bear with me for a second. So the thing with some Lua scripts is that they can be transmitter specific, mostly because of the screen size, because you have to encode within the program the screen size and where to display things. So if it is specific, like the Neuron programming one, that's not necessarily Horus specific or Tyrannus specific. So your mileage may vary. There is a Lua script that has completely changed my outlook. In my previous video, I talked about how this Bluetooth thing that it has, the app that FrSky has, why can't you pull off the telemetry logs and look at it on your smartphone? We're going to do you one better. So there is a Lua script called, LView by a user named Real Tandango. Tell you, if I had $30, $50 and knew where to send it to you, I would, because it's changed me. So what it does is you run it once, and whatever model you have selected, you have a series of logs. If you've enabled your SD logs for that model, it'll create a log file for all of your telemetry. And it'll be stored on your SD card. This script allows you to go in and create graphs on the screen of the Horus to look at your most recent or even historical flights. So if you think you're having a battery performance issue, you can look at, say, a flight from 6 months ago and say, okay, well, I use this many milliamp hours according to this. In the same amount of time, 6 months later, I'm using how many milliamps? And you can sort of do that deductive reasoning. This is the power of telemetry. I love it. And it's also enabled me to look at current and prop readings. When I was evaluating the Flight Test Monster radial, I was able to take direct readings, and I didn't have to look at the screen. I could just look at my log files. It's just brilliant, because I don't have to think about stuff or set up my transmitter in any specific way. I can focus on flying when I'm flying. And then when I'm done flying and a battery is charging, or I'm sitting there talking with people, I can look at my telemetry log and learn something from it. And that's the power of it. There are also Lua scripts that you can use that are in conjunction with like a pitot tube, where it gives you the input of the airspeed, and then you can program in a warning for approaching low airspeed. I was able to do this for my Corsair a couple years ago just through special functions, but there's a Lua script that can do it for you and have it constantly monitor that, which, you know, there's a million ways to do everything on OpenTX and our FrSky radios, but you know, it's fantastic. If you think about all the different things you can do with this telemetry, you can learn your airplane much, much faster. So I'm going to give you a hypothetical. Say you're learning a new discus launch glider and you're practicing your technique. There's a lot of technique that goes into your launch for a DLG. You can then establish your launch height, and you can also program in the position of your elevator on launch as well, so that you can look at if you're dropping too much altitude or pushing too quickly. If there's a GPS sensor, you can look at the speed as well and see if you're pushing over too quickly. You can learn better technique faster by looking at the data, because you may not have the necessary correct vantage point to see exactly what you're doing, which is why so many DLG people fly together, because they help each other that way. If you're on your own, this is a great way to look at analysis for that. So now I'm going to go over just how you can take a Lua script, download it, put it on your SD card, put it on your transmitter, and then use it on your transmitter. I understand that not very many people have looked at this feature or understand how to do it. So I'm going to walk it through you step by step, and hopefully someone will find it helpful and it won't be too redundant for some people that have maybe familiarized themselves with it. So let's get right into that.
All right, guys, so this will take just a couple of seconds to show you here. So this is the SD card contents from your Horus radio, and you want to look at just the SD card and not connect the transmitter, because we don't want to damage the firmware on the radio itself. So just take out the SD card, plug it into your computer, and we're going to work from there. You want to navigate to the scripts folder. And you can see I have the other scripts that I'm currently running here, but that's okay. You still get an idea of where we're navigating to. Then you go to the web and you look for your Lua script that you're interested in, and a lot of these are downloaded from GitHub, and GitHub is a nice open place for programmers to share and exchange files, but you end up getting things that kind of look like gibberish. So again, I clicked on this is the log viewer Lua script that I showed you guys. So with logview.lua, and then you're going to go to the raw, and then it just brings up a bunch of lines of text. Okay, right click, save as logview.lua. It's right there on my desktop, dumps it out. Minimize the browser, you're good. So now we have our logview.lua, but this is a text file. It's recognized as a text file. See, type text document. So now we're going to open it. We're going to file. We're going to save as, and we're going to change our type as all files. And then we're going to completely rename it, just to be sure. lview.lua. And you make sure you click off of that. You don't want that. Click up there and then hit save. There we go. So close that. See how these are different? These are different types of files, and that's what you want. When you hover over top of the file, you want it to be a Lua file. All right, so then once you have the Lua file, dump it into your directory and you're off to the races. Of course, I've already got it here. LView wasn't entirely clear to me, so I renamed mine to logview. Again, you can only have 6 characters in the latest version of OpenTX on any file. So make sure that if you're going to name it to something else, only 6 characters. And from there, you can go ahead and execute your Lua script from within the transmitter.
Alright, so now that we've got the Lua script copied onto our SD card, we're going to navigate in through the radio with it turned on. We're going to navigate through to the Lua script. And we do that by pressing and holding System, hit Page to the SD card, and we're going to scroll down to Scripts, one click, and then right down here, see the FrSky SBEC, that's the Lua script that I've got for the SBECs, and then the log view. So that's the one we want. I'm going to show you log view. One click gives you this menu, and we want execute. So there are new sessions. That's fine. So we're going to go down, we're going to do ESC amps. Yeah, ESC amps. We're going to do RPM. We're going to do temperature. And let's look at our signal. Okay, so we've got 4. Hit execute again. Takes a couple of minutes for this script to run and bring all of the variables up. The longer flight times you have, the longer it'll take to run because it's got more data. But as you can see, there's all sorts of stuff. So we've got our ESC amps are in red, our RPM is in this light blue, the temperature is in this yellow, and the RSSI is in the black. Now with the throttle stick, you can zoom in and out. So let's all the way zoom out. You can also fine scroll through to look at values with the wheel, but you can also move much more quickly using your right stick. So at this point in the flight, I'm flying 51 amps, 68, almost 6900 RPM. My ESC temperature is at 39 degrees, and I've got excellent signal. So let's move down here. So my temperature goes down, and this is what I was talking about before. You can see this yellow line. See how at the beginning, back up. See the yellow line where it's kind of warming up, and then once you get flying, it goes right down. Yeah, it's just weird. But again, you can look at all of this data and you can see that there's min and max values for each part on here, and you can see your flight timer here, you know, how many minutes into this session you are. So you can coordinate it with, you know, approximately when you were flying, and you can even look at video of yourself and say, oh, that's what I was doing when I was pulling this much current, or I was at this altitude. So to get out of this, you hit return to go back here, and you can change which telemetry you want to look at and process it again, or you can look at a different session. But if I want to look at a different model, I have to select a different model. So let's go down here to the radian. Let's see how high I got up to on the radian on my last flight. So again, system, and we're going to page over, go down to scripts, do the log view, execute, and we're going to do accurate. We're going to check every session for a change. Alright, so I'm on session 1 the last time, and that was several days ago. So then we go down and we want to look at our altitude, because I've got one of those fancy receivers on it that I love so much. And we're just going to look at the altitude. We want to see what we got. Long flight session, so it takes a little bit longer. Alright, so in this section I got up to about 500 feet. Not that exciting. Again, zooming in, you can look more granularly. Scrolling over, right there is at 487. you know, and then here I am coming back, circling around. Got close there, and I think I probably messed up my approach and throttled up to go back around, because these things glide forever, you know. So there you go, and then just return until you're back to your home screen, and that's really it, guys. Overall, guys, I just can't say enough good things about my experience with FrSky and their equipment. They have great stuff. I was able to meet official representatives at Flight Fest. They were great guys, super supportive, asked a lot of good questions, and I've just been very, very happy with their products. So many people question me when I've gone to a couple of events this summer with the P47. What radio is that? Oh, it's FrSky. What brand is? I've never heard of that brand. And being able to fly with confidence in something that's not mainstream, which I find laughable at this point. We've had such fantastic support and experiences with FrSky equipment for so long now that, you know, these Spectrum and Futaba guys, they're just such diehards. And you know, I'm flying this really nice model with an FrSky radio, and I'm flying it with confidence. I have no reservations about using their equipment in really nice models, as well as cheap stuff that I really don't care about. The price point is there, the support is there, the community is there. What more can you ask for? And when it comes to me and integrating it as part of my hobby, I really don't have to think about it because I've already learned it. Yeah, it's a little bit hard to learn the FrSky systems at first, but it's just like anything. You have to be patient and ask good questions and talk to people about it. Never be afraid to talk to people about it. And for me, I have every confidence in using their equipment in all of my flying works of art. I hope you do too. And I look forward to seeing many, many more great products from FrSky. Not a paid promotion, just going to put that out there. It's just my experience. I love them, and we'll see what lies ahead in the future.